Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage founder and CEO of Liferay, Bryan Cheung.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Liferay Symposium 2018. It's always a pleasure to have the chance to meet with our customers, our partners, and our community members to talk about what's new with Liferay and to have conversations with you and understand more of what problems you're trying to solve together with Liferay and our technology. I want to thank Dr. Gurbaxani again for his talk and for being here. I love the vision that he has for digital transformation because on the one hand, it kind of sets everything in the context of the big picture that we're facing in the competitive landscape today. But at the same time, I think he's really been able to crystallize the essence of what we need to do, which is to find our competitive advantage and to codify that in software and to move more quickly than we have ever before. I found it inspiring, but at the same time, I can imagine that it causes a little bit of frustration, maybe some doubt and some anxiety because we are not Amazon, we are not Facebook, we are not these large, well-endowed companies being able to take all of the resources that they have to bear in this fight in the digital landscape. And one of the things I want to share tonight is that we should not be surprised when we face these fears and frustrations. As IT leaders, as business leaders, trying to paint that vision of digital transformation, maybe or maybe not having the buy-in from your board, you might just feel like, come on guys, we got to get this going. And we shouldn't be surprised. Digital transformation is not an incremental improvement. This is not just making things a little bit better in an existing paradigm. It's actually a wholesale rethink of how technology enables us to deliver differentiated products and experiences to our customers. And that's a big question, and it's a difficult question to find the answer for. And we're maybe 10 years into this process, maybe by some counts 18 years since the first dot-com boom and bust. And we're still wrestling with some of these questions today. So I thought it would be useful for us to take a look back into history and maybe learn something about what transformation might look like and what we should expect in terms of a timeline. This is one of the first commercially viable light bulbs that was created by Thomas Edison in 1879. What you may not have realized was that electricity was actually known about. It was being worked with for most of the 19th century. And there were actually some prototypes of electric light bulbs that were created as early as 1840 by British scientists. But it really was Edison who took a combination of available technologies, cheap enough vacuum tubes, filaments to make the light bulb readily available to the market. And so you would think that with the light bulb available in 1880 and electric power plants available in London and New York as early as 1920, that most manufacturing plants would immediately migrate over to the new electric power. But the reality is that well into the 1920s and 30s, factories, manufacturing plants continue to run on steam power. This is the Queen Street Mill based in the north of England. And this particular mill actually was in operation as late as 1982. And at that point, they finally shut down, and now they're operating as a museum. So why did mills like the Queen Street Mill, like so many of the manufacturing plants throughout the US and Europe, continue using steam power when this obviously better technology was available? Well, there were a few early adopters who took electric power, but they were really disappointed with the results. Why is that? Well, rather than applying the technology and figuring out what to do with it, they simply swapped out their steam power engines for electric ones. They kept everything else the same. And so, of course, they got some incremental benefits. Maybe it was a little bit cheaper to operate over the long run, But because of that initial capital investment, it just wasn't worth it. So most people stuck it out with steam for a really long time. And in order to really understand why they might have done that, we have to take a look into how steam power actually works. So it seems obvious to most of us. You get a bunch of coal, you put it into a furnace, you get the fire really, really hot. That boils the water, creates steam, and that steam then creates pressure. And the pressure goes through the engine, and that ends up driving a main shaft. What you may not have realized that this main shaft actually drives everything within the whole factory. So at the Queen Street Mill, you can clearly see how everything in the factory is organized around the fact that this is a steam-powered facility. So what does this mean for the plant and its workers? Well, first of all, you probably noticed that all of the stations were tightly packed together. The longer the distance you travel away from the steam engine, the more efficiency you lose. And so you want to get those stations as close as possible. Obviously, for the workers, this isn't ideal. The other thing is that there's no middle ground with steam power. Either you run the whole thing, you crank it up, and all the machines are running, or everything has to be at a complete standstill. So that means everyone has to show up at the same time, 8 o'clock, take your break at noon, get back by 12:30 or whatever it was back in that day, and then work straight through to 4:30. There's very little for any kind of thinking, any kind of independence. Everyone was tied to the timeline of the steam-powered engine. And one of the other consequences of this was that actually the working conditions were quite unsafe. So in addition to the fact that back then it was okay for you to engage children in labor in this environment, you have one stray untied shoelace get caught in one of these running machines, and you could lose a leg, right? Also, because of the requirements of the steam engine and the kind of factory that you had to build to support it, there weren't very many windows. The buildings were really heavy and difficult and costly to manufacture. So you would think that with electricity, everyone would rush out to make that change, right? But one of the reasons why those early adopters were so disappointed was that they didn't realize all of the ways that this new technology would enable them to change the way they operate. So with electricity, one of the things that you get is localized power delivery. You can basically send the power to the place where you need it. So you no longer have to set up your factory in rows like this. You can actually start to reorganize your people and say, well, let's actually get the different groups of people who are working in the same part in the manufacturing process in the same room. You can start spreading people out, and because the factories didn't have to be so heavily built, you could add more windows, you get more natural light and air, and then finally, most importantly for the workers, everyone could actually work independently, and so what started to matter more than just sheer output was creativity. What kind of quality could you bring to the manufacturing process? How could you actually maybe innovate new ways and new patterns into the fabric? And what this meant was then that the people, the requirements for who they hired had changed. They had to pay higher wages, and people had much more flexible working conditions. So if you think about all of the things beyond the technology that had to change in order for you to get the most out of it, it's not really that surprising that so many people just stuck with what they knew for the next 30, 40, or 50 years. Well, we now find ourselves in a similar place today. We have a lot of transformation going on, new technology available. Dr. Gurbakhsani mentioned that Google, Microsoft, and Amazon have machine learning and artificial intelligence services that are ready to use and ready to go for all of you guys. But on the other hand, the technology is also much more complex. And it's no longer enough for maybe business leaders by themselves to realize what they're going to need to do with this technology. They are relying on a lot of the people in this room, IT leadership, developers, to help them understand how to use this technology. At the same time, I would say that more than ever before, it's not enough for you as an IT leader to simply understand the tech and say, if you want to run this kind of server, you're going to need this much processing power. This is how you set up full redundancy. This is how you configure your single sign-on. You really have to understand what business is trying to do in order to propose better solutions with your technical subject matter expertise. Dr. Gurbaxani mentioned a company called Heal, which is able to, at the same cost or lower as a visit to the ER, get you a doctor in your home, in the comfort of your home, in less than 2 hours. And while it's a fascinating story and it's a wonderful service that I hope will be successful and help much more people, I thought what was really interesting about Nick Desai's story was that the reason he came to start his company was because of his own personal experience. You see, Mr. Desai had a 1-year-old son who was born with some chronic health problems, and so he spent so many times, so many visits going to the hospital, being in the waiting room, feeling anxious, filling out paperwork, not knowing what was going to happen to his son. And it really was from the depth of his experience with our modern healthcare system in America that he felt the urgency, and he really thought about, what do we need to do to get this right? What do we have to do to fix the healthcare experience here in America? One of our customers, Mount Sinai Health System, is trying to solve a similar problem. And this was one of the ads that they ran throughout the medical press, and it says, if our beds are filled, it means we've failed. You see, Mount Sinai realized that although their hospitals and their doctors would be compensated when their patients would visit the hospital, this wasn't necessarily in alignment with the better outcomes for patients, right? I don't think anyone in this room really enjoys going to the hospital. I know that I put it off as much as possible. Now that I'm, into my 40s, I'm finding it more necessary than in the past to do so. But being able to stay home is a wonderful thing. And so Mount Sinai has partnered in the city of New York with the visiting nurse service, and they're able to take patient information, patient data, and medical records. They're able to make it available through mobile technology so that these partnering organizations will know everything about the patient. And then these nurses will actually, rather than requiring a patient who's not sure if they have a serious condition or not, come into the ER, they're actually able to visit them on site. And through a combination of authentication and video conferencing technology, they're able to work with the doctor who stays in the hospital with the patient who's at home in order to diagnose the problems and come up with a solution. And it's a much, much more effective solution, and it costs less for everyone than a visit to the ER. So what can we learn about this as an IT leader? Well, if you realize that, the nurse is going to be trying to figure out how to get that video conference going, and they've forgotten their password, and they need to devise a password recovery system. If you know that there's going to be a crying baby in the next room, and that patient is having heart palpitations, and the level of stress and anxiety in that room is really high, you're probably going to think about how you devise and how you design your password recovery and authentication systems more than if you're just thinking about it as a tech leader. And there are many more examples of this sort of thing going on, but I want to now bring it to a close and talk about what this means for Liferay and our community. One of the things that we have wrestled with at Liferay has been this process of understanding what does digital transformation look like for us, and what is the role that we need to play for our customers and our partners. And I would say over the last few years, we've probably gotten it wrong a few times. Those of you who have been with our community for a very long time, you know our roots are in open source. You know that way back when, it was developers who brought Liferay into your organizations because our software allowed them to be more productive more quickly than with competing platforms. But in the last 10 years, so much has changed. On the one hand, developer technologies have really transformed. There's so much front-end technology out there. The cloud and everything that it means for how we can more quickly get new solutions to market much faster than before has probably maybe called into question some of the essential value proposition of Liferay. At the same time, we saw software as a service companies, Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo, doing so much more to deliver business value much more easily and cheaply than using a platform like Liferay to deliver that same value. And we tried to probably cater to the business directly. We thought that we had to go along with that and say, okay, we're going to figure out problems for marketing, or we're going to figure out problems for sales. But what we've come to realize is that there is a core set of challenges that require IT and business to work together. You need to use software like Liferay. You need a platform. You need to go much deeper than what SaaS allows you to do. But we don't have the luxury of taking even 6 to 9 months like we used to. We need to do things more cheaply, more simply, and faster than ever before. Simply put, I think we need to get out of the way of your transformation. And I think for several years, maybe Liferay hasn't done a good job of that. We've made you jump through a lot of hoops, learn a lot of proprietary stuff that isn't really relevant to you delivering business value, which is the most important thing. So going forward from 2018, with a lot of the new products and offerings you're going to hear about over the next 2 days, you're going to see how we've really made a commitment to get out of the way of your transformation, to partner with IT leadership who is committed to understanding what the business needs, bringing your subject matter expertise, but also working with the business to deliver a better solution than you could do apart from each other. I've been working a lot of late nights at the office with all the product launches, with this conference to get ready for. And I don't think I've ever thought twice about the fact that I can switch on the light switch and keep the lights on way later than usual, and that I can be the only one working late without having to keep the rest of the building running. And I think in the same way that those factory workers back in the 20s and 30s couldn't really see how technology was going to change things, we're in that same situation now, right? So many things, standards, safety testing, contracts with utility providers, other supporting technology, come together to make it possible for us to work late on a Tuesday evening. But it's something that we take for granted. The technology is invisible. And in a way, that's the goal that we have at Liferay as well. So there's a few things that we're doing. The biggest of those we're going to announce tomorrow morning. But I want to share just a few of the things that we have been trying to do at Liferay. The first is in our product line. One of the things that you'll see in the products that we're going to talk about at this conference is that more than ever, we are trying to anticipate the business problems that you need to solve and to go more of the distance in solving them for you. Many of you have probably worked with Omniture, which has become Adobe Analytics. You've worked with Google Analytics, and you're trying to wrangle some kind of solution for marketing attribution or understanding user behavior so that you can understand and better improve your customer service practices using those platforms. But those analytics platforms were not really tailored for the kinds of problems that you're solving with your customer portals and partner portals. So for example, with Analytics Cloud, we have tried to anticipate some of the questions that you have and your business leaders have so that out of the box, you're going to get those answers more quickly than ever before. Liferay University, this is a new offering that we are introducing this year. This is a fully video-based tutorial system. It is available to our customers and to our partners and our community. We cover everything from how to develop with OSGI to how do you, as an administrator, make sense of and use Analytics Cloud, to, as a marketer or business user, how do you use our web experience management system. All of this is available online so that you can take these courses from the comfort of your office. You don't have to set aside 3 days, 5 days. You don't have to take your consultants off the bench or send your developers somewhere to get training. You can just do it really easily. And then finally, with this conference, we really want to drive home this idea that your roles as IT leaders is changing. We have Mark Grannon, who is from Forrester, who's going to be talking more about the changing role of IT leadership. And one of the quotes that I got from the abstract is he's going to talk about concrete ways that CIOs can bring together business and IT teams to really push through the high-level fluff of digital transformation and bring about real project growth. And I think you would agree that probably for the last few years at Liferay and other conferences, we've talked a lot about digital transformation. We haven't learned that much about how to do it, right? We've got also a couple of great case studies. We've got Dropbox here, who has a great new partner portal implementation. And we've got Spire Energy, who as part of $1 billion mergers and acquisition transformation, has worked with Liferay and one of our partners to deliver a new customer experience that's fully digital so that customers don't even have to think twice about their relationship with Spire as an energy provider. Well, I started this talk by talking about how we might feel a little bit anxious, a little bit scared about what digital transformation looks like for my company. We're not Amazon, we're not Facebook, and we also don't have the agility of something like a Lyft or an Airbnb, where we can just throw caution to the wind, ignore regulations, not pay local hotel taxes, and then figure it out later, right? We are working and representing some of the biggest, most established companies in some of the oldest industries in the US, whether it's financial services or healthcare or telecom. And we're not able to move like these guys, right? Well, I wanted to bring it all together with one last example of a company who, without even using technology, is in fact competing quite successfully against Amazon. And it's kind of an unlikely success story, but that's Costco. How many of you are actually Costco members? Okay, a good number of people in the room. Maybe not as many as our Prime subscribers, but a good number. Costco has done something brilliant. They've succeeded by being everything that Amazon is not. Amazon, they came up with their logo, Amazon, everything from A to Z to make you smile, right? It's a brilliant logo, one of my favorite corporate designs, actually. Even though it's actually not that pretty, but I think the meaning is really neat. But Costco actually stocks as few items as possible. But what they do instead is that they have made sure that every product that they sell is the best quality option in their category, and that they're selling it at the lowest price possible. And what they've done is they've aligned the incentives for Costco as a company and the incentives for the customer, so that the more value that customers get out of Costco services, the better it is for Costco. And what I learned about Costco as I was studying them is that they actually don't make that much money from selling products. They do billions of dollars of revenue, but most of their profit, I believe 60 to 70% of their profit, is actually from the membership. So their goal is actually to get more and more members to sign up and be on that annual $60 program, so that Costco can then take that revenue and drive more savings into it. And the more people they buy, the better negotiating power they have with their suppliers, the more that they're able to just move inventory through their stores without having separate warehouses. It's a brilliant business model, and it works. They have come to a point where they understand their audience really well, so that everything that they offer, the customer just picks it up without giving it a second thought. I don't know if you know this, but Kirkland Signature is one of the most successful in-house brands in retail. And I believe the margins on those products is something like 20 to 30%, much, much higher than for the non-branded stuff. So it's working for Costco. They have happy employees. They pay their workers far more than any other retailer. They have all the right locations next to all the freeway exits, and they have excellent customer service. I don't know how many of you are guilty of buying something from Costco and returning it 2-3 years later. I'm actually not a member, so I've not done that. But they just don't ask questions, right? And that's what builds loyalty. And it's paying off for them. So one thing that I noted about this story is that they haven't even really gotten into e-commerce in earnest yet. So I think out of their sales, maybe only 5% is being done online through Costco.com. So once they get serious about that and once they figure it out, I think it's going to be phenomenal for them. So I want to leave you with this story. Amazon is not invincible. Facebook is not invincible. The leaders in your industries, they're not invincible. Dr. Gurbaxani ended his talk by saying, keep fighting, keep getting into the ring every day. What I want to tell you is that the things that have made your companies successful already to this day, they're a lot stronger than you think. And with the right leadership, with you guys innovating, taking our technology and other technology out there and helping your business to solve these really challenging problems, you're going to do really, really well. So thank you for being here. Tonight we want to celebrate the Liferay community and really say thank you for all being our customers and for making it possible for us to have this event. I look forward to seeing you out in the pavilion. Thank you very much.